Welcome. Most of us are pretty familiar with the Christmas story, but today we're going to look past the scenes we all know and really explore the profound, powerful idea at its very core, what it truly means that God chose to be with us.
Everything about the Christmas story really hinges on this one powerful idea. It doesn't start with some big, thunderous announcement or a grand display of power. No, the whole thing's set on a quiet night, and the main theme isn't about power, it's about closeness. That one concept really frames everything that's about to unfold.
So right from the get-go, this arrival was completely different. This wasn't about some distant deity just watching from afar. This was about heaven stepping directly and humbly into the mess and the middle of human history.
The arrival itself was so intentionally quiet and humble. Just think about it for a second. Being placed in a manger, which is just a feeding trough for animals, that completely flips the script on any expectation of how a divine being should enter the world. It was a huge statement from the very first breath.
Now, what's really key here is that this humble arrival wasn't an accident. It wasn't just a matter of circumstance. No, it was a deliberate, conscious choice. It was a choice to put presence with humanity above staying separate and distant.
You might expect a divine arrival to be all about overwhelming power, right? About distance and a clear separation between the divine and the mortal. But the reality was the total opposite: humility, proximity, and presence. And that contrast, well, that's the entire point.
So the crucial point here is that this wasn't about observation. It was all about participation. That phrase, to dwell among us, it means to live with, to share the same space, to literally be a neighbor. The whole goal was to close that gap that had always existed between the divine and the human.
And all of this builds up to this single, incredibly powerful concept. And it's all wrapped up in a specific name given to Jesus, Immanuel.
This is so important. Immanuel isn't just a nice name we hear during the holidays. It's defined right here as a permanent promise. It captures the core message that God's presence wasn't just for a single moment in a manger. It's an ongoing, continuous reality. And get this, look at the direction of the action. It wasn't up to us to try and figure out how to bridge the gap to get to God. Instead, the whole story of Immanuel is about God taking the initiative, crossing every single divide you can imagine, divine and human, perfect and imperfect, just to reach us.
Okay, so this brings this massive historical idea right down to a deeply personal level. The promise of God with us isn't just something that happened in history. It's meant to be something very real in our daily lives, right now, in every single season.
This message speaks directly into the heart of the human experience, doesn't it? It's for anyone who's ever felt forgotten or unheard or just weighed down by everything life throws at us. The promise isn't for people who have it all together. It's specifically for those who feel lost and alone. The message is just that simple. God came near.
And that nearness, it's not conditional. It stretches across the entire spectrum of life. It's a promise for the good times and the bad, for moments when we're full of faith and for those moments of crippling doubt, for when we feel strong and for when we feel utterly weak.
Once you start to grasp this promise, it naturally leads to a really practical question. It's one thing to know that God is with us, but it's another thing entirely to actually live like we believe it's true. So what does that even look like?
So the ultimate takeaway from this whole story is something that goes way beyond just a single holiday. It's really about learning to recognize an ever-present wonder in our lives. And here it is. The real wonder isn't just about a historical event. It's the absolutely radical idea that God chose to make his home with us. And this wasn't some temporary visit either. It's an ongoing journey, a continuous walk, side by side, with us, today. And that leaves us with this final, challenging thought. It's really a plea for faith, right? It's an admission that we won't always feel this divine presence. The ultimate challenge is to trust that he is near, even, and maybe especially, when our senses and our circumstances are telling us the exact opposite. That quiet promise from Bethlehem still echoes. You are not alone.